If you're anything like me, then you might have a tendency to get distracted and have a hard time following through on plans. This is something that I've struggled with my entire life. And it hasn't been until I got diagnosed with ADHD that I wonder, oh, that's why. It's just not something we're great at, which is not to say that we can't build a skill to do that, right? And since the beginning of this year, I have really committed to a monthly and weekly planning process that is now actually kind of fun. And I can look back at my entire year that I've been using in Notion and just kind of plan my weeks out so that I know what I'm doing going into the next week. It has been the catalyst for me being so consistent in my business, which is something I really sucked at before I got into this planning process. In this video, I'm going to share my planning and reset process for August. I watch a lot of them on YouTube, and it's usually 20-year-old YouTubers, which they do a fantastic job. I absolutely adore them. But I thought, I don't see a lot of 50-something women doing resets and monthly planning. And I don't see a lot of ADHDers doing this. So this is my perspective. Take from it what you will, and let's jump right in. I will share my Notion template and how I literally logistically plan out my months. But what I wanted to do was just do some personal reflections before I got into that. So looking back at July, it was a really busy month. The biggest takeaway I have is that I'm working too much. I actually took the month of July off of my YouTube production schedule to create time in my schedule for a program that I'm launching in September. This is going to be a group coaching program that I'm running, and there's a lot of behind the scenes work that needs to be developed for the curriculum. So I had this grandiose idea that I was going to take the month of July off YouTube, still doing all of my other things like coaching and podcasting and blogging and social media, all those things, but taking my YouTube hours and applying them to this program development. And the question is, did I get it done? Well, not exactly, but I did make a lot of progress. And this is my first lesson from the month of July. The reason I had a lot of progress is that I'm doing this program on Teachable, which is like an on-demand learning platform that a lot of creators use. And within Teachable, they do these monthly accelerator programs where a cohort will come together and actually develop curriculum as a group. And there's a coach, you go into a Zoom room, and they, every week it's like, now we're going to do an outline, now we're going to do a sales page, now we're going to do this, that, and the other thing. And I found that so incredibly helpful. It's a little bit of body doubling, it's a little bit of accountability, it's a little bit of time pressure, and it's a little bit of structure. And that is a recipe for success as far as I'm concerned when it comes to ADHD. So that is something that I'm going to be taking forward in the program that I'm developing. So it's a little meta. But I just also found it super helpful. So I'm going to look for more opportunities where I can lead programs like that, but also where I can participate in them, because I find that I get the majority of work done that way. The other reflection I have for the month of July is that I'm just simply doing too much. All of the work that I am currently doing in my business just feels incredibly overwhelming. And this is another ADHD thing where we say yes to everything and we want to do all the things because we have an abundance of ideas, but we don't have an abundance of time, energy, or organization skills to get snizzle done. So I know I'm at a point now where I have to say goodbye to either some revenue streams or channels within my business because I just can't do everything, and I'm not yet ready to hire support. Mostly because I don't feel very organized, so bringing somebody else in at this moment feels just incredibly overwhelming. So that is something else I need to focus on for the last 2 quarters of the year. But I know that what I can do is start peeling back some of the social media efforts that I'm doing. And the way I'm looking at that are what are the channels that actually move the dial, where I have the most reach, the most engagement, and the most ROI on my revenue streams. And at the bottom of that list is definitely Instagram and Facebook and maybe even LinkedIn. On the top of that list is YouTube, my podcast, and my emailing list. So my decision going into August is that I am going to completely eliminate any pressure to post on those platforms. I'm not getting rid of them, but to be quite honest, I don't even like spending much time on them lately. But if I feel inspired, I will, but I'm no longer putting pressure on myself to work on those channels. Going forward, I'm going to focus my attention 100% on YouTube, my podcast, and distributing that content also through my mailing list, which if you're not on my mailing list, you definitely should be. And I will put a link below the video so that you can sign up. And every Sunday, you will get a sweet little email from me setting you up for a wonderful weekend week ahead. And I feel like that's going to be a manageable schedule for me going forward. The one other thing I planned to do in July, and it didn't quite turn out as expected, was our road trip to New Mexico. My husband and I decided to get out of the heat of Austin, and we drove a long way to Santa Fe, only to learn that one of our senior dogs has a heart murmur and can no longer tolerate being at altitude. So we literally had to turn around after a night in the emergency and drive 2 days all the way back to Austin. And I don't even want to think about how much that cost us between the Airbnb rental and the vet bills, because at the end of the day, my dog is back and she's doing much better. So I am happy about that. But it did bring up an interesting thought for me around the way I'm planning my months and the way that I'm just living in general right now. I find that I am so hyper-focused on work that it has started to be to the detriment of other areas of my life. I'm not spending as much time calling friends, definitely not seeing friends because they all live in different cities. And I'm not spending enough time having fun. As I was listening to some of these other YouTubers reflect and reset their schedules, they talked about the fiction books they were reading and the movies they were watching and the shows they were watching. And to be quite honest, I have all but eliminated any ounce of fun from my schedule lately. And I think I've been leaning too hard into this narrative that when you have a new business, you have to work your buns off to get it up and running, which I have been. But I'm starting to see that if I don't slow down and start creating more balance or fun in my life, I'm quickly going to burn out. And if you're somebody with ADHD, you know how that cycle goes. And I do not want to go through it again. So for the month of August, one of my big goals is intentionally setting opportunities to get out and enjoy the blazing heat of Austin, because we're not going to be here much longer. So this is the time. So my husband and I started a shared Apple Note file where we're going to list out all the restaurants we want to go to, the coffee shops we want to see, the areas of Texas that we still want to check out, because that all needs to be done within the next 12 months. And that's pretty exciting, putting a timeline around it and just prioritizing fun, at least a couple of days a week, going out and enjoying this beautiful city that we live in. The other thing I'm doing this month is a quick trip back to California to see some friends, and I'm looking forward to that because it always fills my cup. And last but not least, I am definitely going to be finishing my coaching program because registration is opening on August 15th. So sidebar, if you're interested in working with me in a group setting as your coach, if you've had something that you've wanted to do for a long time, but you've been procrastinating on it, then this program is designed to shift you from distraction to action. It is developed with an ADHD in mind, but you certainly don't have to have ADHD to appreciate it. Just anybody with a distracted, overwhelmed, busy brain will definitely gain value from this coaching program, and it's going to be a lot of fun, taught by yours truly. So I will also link to the waiting list for that. So when registration opens up, you can take a look and decide if it's for you or not. So those are my personal and professional goals for August. So with that, I'm going to take you through a quick tour of my monthly planning process in Notion in case you use that software and it might be helpful for you. So let's head on in there. Okay, this is my Notion software where I house all of my monthly reviews. Before I even go there, however, I am going to do a little revisit to my strengths, desires, needs, wants, all of those great things that really drive where it is I want to go. So this is a separate software that I have available and I will link below, but it's a way to really understand yourself and get clear on your goals and who you are and how you should approach your goals. So there's a different assessments, but you will end up with something like this, which is your core values. And you will also figure out your character strengths based on research out of University of Pennsylvania. And once you know this, you know how to approach your goals and how to show up as your best. You'll understand your needs, what you need to live a happy, healthy, whole life. And then you can also sort of explore a bucket list, as I've done here, which I consider different than goals. Goals are something I choose to do in the moment. Bucket lists are more broader dreams I'd like to do in my life. So I look at these things before I plan or review any month because I just want to remind myself of what's most important to me. And then I can really align to that as I plan my following month. And I can also see if I've aligned to that in the previous month. So once I've spent some time doing that, I then go over to my journal And I also do weekly reviews, by the way. I do them here, but today we're going to focus on the reviews for the month. So this is July. I set up a little bit of it, but I haven't done much to it because usually this is more of a retrospective. Do plan my one thing in advance, and I usually like to pick a word as I'm going into the month, which captures how I'm feeling. And then the rest of the work is done at the end of the month. So I list out what are some of my challenges and successes and gratitudes for the month. And then I also will plot in where are all of these various different things in the moment because they're important trackers for my business. I ask myself what I love doing this month and what I hated doing. I think those are really important things to ask because it's really important to understand what you're enjoying because that's where your magic is. The rest of these pieces are mostly journal reflections. So I've got some reflections that are strictly for my business. And it just helps me to think through what went well, what didn't go well, what moved the dial from a monetary perspective, and what did I feel that was successful or purposeful. And then I do the same with personal reflections, highlights and lowlights of the month, and really looking at my energy because to me that's so important, more important than time or money. The other thing I've been tracking lately are intuitive hits. This is something that I've been consciously trying to cultivate in my life is more intuition. So if I get some intuitive hits, I will jot them down in a database, which I can then sort of check back and see how they've unfolded over time. And I always track my wins because that just feels good to do. And then the last thing I review, which is really important to me, is my monthly revenue. So I do have a target column that I've hit here. But what I'll do is pull that up and then bring together all of my various different actuals for the month of July. These are my different streams of revenue and come up with a total number to just evaluate that aspect of my business. Did I hit my monthly goals or not from a monetary perspective? And that's all I will do for July. And then there are a few things that I will do for the month ahead. So I will plan out any goals that I want to do specifically for August. And I will tell you the one goal I have this month is to complete my coaching program that I've been working on. And then if I have goals that need to be broken into projects, I'll do that here. And some of these are personal, some of them are business related. And then whatever I have in terms of projects, I will then break down and operationalize into tasks. And if you are someone with ADHD, this is often where we get hung up on the task piece because we can create tasks all day long, but we won't necessarily follow through on them. And a couple of tips there, I like to make my tasks extremely small and operational and very specific. See, for example, some of these are terrible. Edit modules, that's not helpful. So I'm a work in progress when it comes to operationalizing my tasks, but I find that the more specific they are, the more I'm able to really keep them going throughout the month. And then I have a different system for actually managing those tasks throughout the week, which I will show in a separate video. But I just wanted to show you how my monthly reflections work. They're pretty simple, but they're incredibly effective. And once I've completed that, I will then go into this document, make a new document for August, and I will set it up very similarly. I will choose my one thing, which is getting my coaching program done, and choose my emotion for the month. And then the rest of these I will address at the end of August. And that's my monthly planning process in a nutshell. Again, once I have a vision for the month ahead, then it makes my weekly planning a lot easier. I've had a lot of updates on that as well. So I will definitely do an updated Notion weekly planning process video for you next. And if you have any questions on this process, please let me know. And if you like the style of video, then please give it a thumbs up so that I know to make more of them. And thank you guys for listening. I will see you in the next video.